Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where conscious female creators come together with a shared vision to inspire and empower women as they learn how to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and collaborate on how together we can change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness coach and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to today's episode. I am so excited. Lisa Fox is a confidence coach, often referred to as the confidence queen, all the way from Dublin, Ireland. Lisa helps moms in business to become confidence queens themselves and make shit tons of money, rocking that confidence all over the place. Welcome to the show, Lisa. I'd love to kick this off by having you just share a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your backstory and some of the things that you might have overcome to get to where you are today. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Christy. And thank you for having me. This is just, it's so fun. It's so fun. I mean, you and I have talked a couple of times now, and I love your vibe and I love what your podcast represents and stands for. And I'm all about empowering women.
And I suppose sharing our stories of what we've overcome, because I think this is the thing. When we look at other people who are successful, we forget that they've actually overcome a bunch of shit to get where they are now. And not only that, but it's the exact things that they've had to overcome that have made them successful. Right.
And like that whole journey of overcoming gives us the lessons that we can then teach to others and pass on and inspire and empower other people with. So it's kind of a necessary part of the journey.
Yeah, that's right. And, like in terms of, you asked me, like, what have I overcome? I mean, I think it's the thing that surprises people the most about me. But what I've overcome is a severe lack of confidence. Like, Christy, I can't even do it justice what I'm about to describe to you. But I was the child who would blush no matter who spoke to me. Like, you could be my friend, and like if you came up to me and started talking to me, I still might go red starting here and just go, and when it goes up to here and then you start sweating and you go, oh my God, they know they're seeing that I'm blushing, and then they go, oh, you're gone all red. Yeah. I was that child. I was, the teenager who, like, my background is performance, but I would vomit before every performance. Like I those things and so many other things, I just had zero confidence, and now I know that there's a lot of people who look at me and think, well, it's okay for you because you're confident.
Right.
But what the reason that I'm the confidence queen and the reason that I'm a confidence coach is because I had to learn the skill of confidence from scratch. Yeah. And that is why I'm so fucking good at teaching that skill,
Yeah. Well, when we have those personal experiences with those things, we understand what it's like to be on the other side, right? So we can really relate to people who are struggling with that, and we can show them what worked for us.
That's right. And when somebody is on that other side, when somebody hasn't overcome the thing that you've overcome, it can feel so lonely. And I know even now, because even though my confidence is fantastic now, I still struggle with my confidence. When I get coached, guess what I get coached on? My confidence, like every single time. So like, I know that even now when I'm feeling that, like, oh God, like, what's wrong with me? Or, just not feeling able to do the things that I feel like I should be able to do, or whatever insecurities come up, every single time it strikes me and kind of shocks me how isolating it feels and how lonely it feels. And so, I think that's the first thing that anybody needs to hear when they're struggling with their confidence in whatever way, shape, or form that's taking. It's like, you're not alone. Yeah. You're not unique. you know,
Yeah.
most of us have been there. And you know what I actually think about confidence, and one of my core beliefs is that, in a way, in a kind of a fucked up way, it's better to come from a place and to be born with little or no confidence and to learn the skill and become confident than it is, in a way, to be born with confidence. Because I do believe there are people that are born with confidence as well. Because when you're born with confidence, your confidence can still be knocked, shaken, and taken away from you.
Yeah.
But if you're born with confidence, it's very difficult to really accept that confidence that you once had, you can build it back up. That it is actually, it's not just a natural thing. It can be a skill as well. And it's something that you can build again. You know, it's like, you know what they say, what's that book? Oh, I can't remember it. Carol Dweck, I think her name is. She talks about growth mindset. And there's a study of children who were basically told from a very early age. I'm probably going to misquote this, but anyway, you're going to get the gist.
Yeah.
Told from a very early age that they're very intelligent, that, you know, like working out maths problems comes naturally to them. They don't really need to put that much work into it. They're amazing, they're awesome, they're brilliant, right? And then there's this other group of kids who, you know, are part of the same study, and they were encouraged and told that they were hard workers and that they could figure anything out if they actually put the work in. And so both groups of kids did the same study, and it was like maths problems that they had to do. And they were all kind of at the same level, right? But across the board, the kids who did better in that maths exam were the ones who were encouraged for their work ethic and for their ability to problem solve and show up and try and figure it out. And it's because they had that belief that they can figure it out. But when you have the belief that, oh, this is just a natural thing for me,
right.
and then like something is presented to you where it's like, oh, well, that doesn't feel natural, therefore I can't.
Yeah.
You know, so in a weird fucked up way, I do think, actually, if you're in a place where you're really feeling, you know, like you just weren't one of those people who had confidence. Confidence seems like a very elusive thing to you, where you're like, you either have it or you don't, and like, I just never had it. You're actually better positioned to learn the skill than if you had been born with it.
And I think lots of this even ties into a little bit, talked about it on the show a little bit, like the whole idea of being like a good girl and measuring up and performing and all of these things. I think they're kind of interconnected. What do you think about that?
Oh my God. Being a good girl, perfectionism, fucking people pleasing.
That.
All part of the same bullshit package. And it's for girls. That's what sickens me about it. Yeah. Because boys are not brought up to be good, like, to, you know, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but like to be good, to be perfect, to be, you know, like nice, pleasant, don't hurt anybody, don't upset anybody. They're mainly told, go after it, be brave, fucking, you know, warrior, you know?
Yeah, and don't be a girl. That's what they're taught. Don't be like the girls, right?
That's right.
Because being a girl is so awful.
Yeah, but you know, like when you're a girl in a classroom in a school with boys, right? And you're a teacher, and don't get me wrong, I have a background in teaching drama. And I actually caught myself doing this. So my classes, they were mainly girls, and there would always be a few boys. And the boys were always hyper, out of control. Not out of control, but the boys they just seemed to like, it was impossible for them to put their hand up and say, like, wait to be, you know, to have permission to ask their question or whatever. We're girls, we're naturally much better at that because we're brought up to be like that, right? And maybe there is a natural element to it too, I don't know. But with the boys, I ended up sort of just going, oh, boys, whereas if a girl didn't put her hand up, I was like, no, okay, we're supposed to put our hands up. I caught myself and I was like, fuck, no, Lisa, no. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. Because what we're teaching girls when we do that is you have to be perfect. You have to be good. You're not going to succeed unless you do what you're told.
Yeah.
Because in stark contrast, they see the boys getting away with being told the same thing, but getting away with not doing it. Right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, we end up being perfectionists. And of course, we end up being people pleasers. And it's really confusing because you leave school, right? And you leave the educational system and you're out in the big bad world. And the rules that you play by in school don't fucking work in the real world. And so we actually go in this endless loop where we're like, well, maybe I just need to be better at everything. And maybe I need to just be the absolute best at this. And maybe I could just be, if I was just a little bit more perfect, maybe it would work. Maybe I would be successful then.
Yeah.
But actually, it's fucking nonsense. It was always nonsense. It was just we were told the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And really the message is, if you're confident, you will succeed. You're not confident, you won't succeed. It's got nothing to do with perfectionism. It's got nothing to do with people pleasing. That was all a big fat lie. But it's a lie that we were taught from a very young age. So it's very difficult to decode and reprogram yourself. And I think that's kind of what my work is all about.
Yeah. I mean, we've been taught to be the good girl, to be giving, caring, nurturing, soft, gentle, all of these things, and to care for others above ourselves, probably by the time we were like 2, right? Like we caring for our dollies and our, being so gentle, and yet boys are rough and tumble, and that's just okay. Girls are rough and tumble, like, oh, calm down. Like, there's so much wrapped into it. And it can be subtle in a way, and we don't even realize that this is forming all of those foundations for who we're going to grow up and think we are, who we believe we are, as, take on as our identity as a woman. And the truth is, with the whole perfectionist thing, what the fuck is even perfection anyways? Like, it's an impossible goal. No one's perfect. We are all human, Now we're not broken and all of this. I believe that we have the capacity to be whole, and the wholeness is already within us. We just need to sort of open ourselves up and lean into that and discover the strategies that help us to act as a whole human being.
Feel like a whole human being. Yes, exactly.
And often it's ourselves blocking ourselves, but it's not our fault. It's all of that programming and that conditioning to act and behave in a certain way.
Yeah. But I think that programming and conditioning can be broken and fucked out the window. Like I really do. I think it's not obviously, because it's gone on for so long, obviously it's not going to happen overnight. But I think it can happen quicker than we think it can happen.
Kick that shit right to the curb.
Right. And every time, like, catch it every time. And I had a not uncomfortable, but a friend of mine, she has a son who's like 6 months older than my daughter. Now they're babies. They're like, my daughter's like not even 2 yet. Yeah. So we walked together on the school run. And one day she said, something about, we kind of joke about, like, when they get older, they're going to get married, whatever.
Yeah. Sure.
And I can't remember how it came up, but she said something about, it's okay. If Nina is his future wife, that's okay. As long as I just wanted to end up with somebody who puts him first and somebody who doesn't put her own needs ahead of his. And I was like, well, he's not going to marry my daughter then.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
She I don't think, like, she's progressive. She's a feminist. It was just something she said. And I don't think she was thinking. I don't think she meant anything regressive.
Programming runs deep, though.
The programming runs deep.
Yeah,
exactly. And I was like, but I was like, not going to marry my daughter. And we sort of laughed it off. It didn't turn into anything that was in any way a big deal, or it was never addressed again. But I was just like, what?
Yeah, like my ears are listening. Like what? Yeah,
but we have to be on the lookout, right? That's part of our job as feminists, to be on the lookout for that bullshit. And as I said, like I've caught myself saying stupid things before as well, and anti-feminist things, and then I'm like, even my husband has caught me kind of going, and he'd be like, "Is that really? Do you really mean that?" I'm like, actually, no. Jesus, as you said, the programming runs deep.
Yeah. And sometimes it's in there, and we're not even aware of it, right? And then those kind of comments come out. We're like, oh, wait a minute, because actually, I don't. And I think that the first part of that is being really curious about what we're thinking and what we're believing in, and stop and ask the question, wait a minute, do I actually believe this? Or is this just like some background? And I feel like it sounds woo-woo when you say like programming, but there's no other way to like really call that like subconscious thought process that's a simple word. So conditioning, programming, just whatever you believe, right, on a subconscious level, and all the things that we've experienced, all of the things we've been told, all the things we've accepted, intentionally, unintentionally, not necessarily our fault. It's the world at large, and our perception of the experiences we're having all accumulate. So, sometimes it can be kind of running in the background. We don't even notice.
You don't even notice. And you know what else is interesting, Christy? So do you have any girls? Do you have a girl?
No, I have 4 boys.
4 boys. You have 4 boys.
Three boys of my own, and then I also have a bonus son. They are all teenagers. So
yes,
yeah,
you are amazing. But so I have a daughter. As I said, she's 21 months now, and what has shocked me beyond belief is some of the things that I've noticed that aren't conditioning, that are just in her DNA. Like I like, because I've always kind of thought, well, it's kind of a bit bullshit, because like, who's giving the girl the dolls? Like, somebody's giving them to her. So like when we had her for a long time, I mean, she had presents from people, but it was pandemic. That we didn't have many visitors. She had some toys, but she was mainly using the toys that my son had. And I was like, yeah, she's like using the cars, and she's monster trucks and Spider-Man stuff. And anyway, as soon as my daughter set her eyes on a dolly, it was like something came over her. And she treated that dolly like a little baby. And she was so gentle, so nurturing, and like, I remember my mother-in-law going, oh, she's a real little mommy. And I was like, don't say that, And I was like, okay, why am I mad that she's just like, she didn't learn that from anywhere. She certainly fucking learned it from me. Do you know what I mean? But like, she's just doing the girly girl things. And as much as I'm kind of like, look, listen, when I was from a very young age, I loved dolls. I loved that kind of stuff. I loved Barbie dolls. I loved any sort of dolls. That was my thing. And I was the girly girl. But I always kind of felt like, I bet that was just because I was given those things and I wasn't given. And now that I'm seeing like myself, I suppose through her eyes, I'm like, I don't know, maybe there's also a DNA thing at play. But let's not get confused. Even though, maybe women are the gentler gender, maybe there is a DNA thing going on. Maybe we do naturally tend towards nurturing and whatever. But it still doesn't mean that we need to hold ourselves back with all the perfectionism bullshit and the people pleasing conditioning that we have been taught, let's face it, way more than any man or any boy ever has.
Yeah. And I think actually, like, our DNA actually contains DNA from 7 generations, I understand. I'm not like an epigenetics expert by any
What?
means, but I find it interesting because like 7 generations is a while back. Like things were quite different then, right? So, the way that we're evolving over time kind of is a slower process. So some of those beliefs and some of those tendencies may be coming from past times, even carried through our DNA as it's slowly evolving and catching up with the times. And I think we all ultimately carry both feminine and masculine energy and the capability to have those in balance, right? And so I think the problem is when we swing one way too far to one side or the other, we're far too much on the feminine energy side and lack maybe some of the masculine energy that will balance it out and keep us a little bit more centered in the middle, as opposed to being at one end of the spectrum or the other. Of course, this applies to everybody. And I think men also have feminine energy as well. Of course, they've been taught since very young to squash that because we don't want you being a sissy or whatever kind of boy nonsense stuff. And oh, you don't cry like a girl. Like, I don't know. This is my experience. Like my boys are maybe going to kill me if they listen to this. But like, honestly, when they were little, I honestly was shocked by how much they cried over everything. And I don't know why I was so blown away, but I'm an only child. And so I didn't have siblings around. So I really, aside from kids that I babysat, which is totally a different sort of scenario than your own children, but I was actually really surprised by how emotional they were and how emotional they still tend to be even into their teenage years. I had no fucking clue, actually. Like, women are touted as the emotional gender.
Oh my God. Well, I like having a little boy and a little girl. I tell you, there's no difference in their emotions. They've both got all the emotions. Yeah. And yet, like, when I see like my husband, even though he's very balanced in his feminine and masculine, he's very nurturing, probably more nurturing than I am actually. He's very, very kind and very gentle, but I've seen him cry once, and it was when he was very, very ill. He was very ill and felt very guilty about something.
Compounding effect.
Yeah, just compound effect there. But I love how I've never once had to say to him, because he's a feminist too, like I've never once had to say to him, it's okay for our son to cry. He completely allows our son's emotions, and he's never suggested, that he, be a man or, like that kind of bullshit. Or boys don't cry. So I mean, he's kind of breaking the generational cycle there, because I know I love his dad. My husband's dad is like another dad to me. But my husband would have definitely heard that from his dad. Yeah. Boys don't cry.
That generation, that was a whole thing, right? So I find I don't know, I'll even say like Gen X and older, especially men, really, well, I saw a meme that said that men have successfully redefined anger as not an emotion so that they can claim that they aren't emotional, right? Like it's kind of fucked up, but like it kind of makes sense, right? Because I know people who are like men who are like, I don't have emotions. I'm like, you're very ragey. So that's an emotion, right? Like, and I've heard lots of people being like this. When I saw this meme, I was like, that actually kind of makes sense with what I've seen. Just that men think anger is okay. Even in the media, on TV, on all of these things, men typically are portrayed as more aggressive and more angry, but not emotional, which is not accurate at all. But they've been kind of conditioned to not be emotional. Yet all of those emotions that they're like kind of stuffing down and trying to hide and not feel are all coming out as anger and rage and frustration, right?
Yeah. And and I notice this in myself as well. Anything that we repress
Yeah.
stronger, and because it festers,
Yeah.
and then it stinks, and then it comes out in all the wrong ways, but it comes out like at this pungent, like stinky fucking, like far too, like toxic, whereas I actually, whatever, whatever we're thinking or feeling, if we can just go, okay, there it is, let's look at it, like, there it is what it is.
Observe
And
it, right?
we can observe it and allow it,
Yeah.
and kind of go, okay, like everything passes eventually, like,
Yeah.
even like if it's anger or if it's whatever, it's just about allowing it and acknowledging it and honoring it, and then fucking getting over it. But you can't get over it if it's like,
Yeah. If you're trying to avoid it and you're not willing to take that look and be like, okay, what is this all about? And I think too, there's the opposite end of that. We can get like stuck in this spiral of attaching a boatload of meaning to a thing, which is a bunch of assumptions and stories and beliefs that actually have very little to do with the situation. So kind of got to be careful to not go there either. So, just looking at it from a neutral perspective. What is coming up for me? How am I feeling? What does this mean, without getting carried away with that meaning, but just like, what's causing it, so that I can just release that, right?
Yeah.
Feel it, release it, and then we can move on.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just do that all the time?
It
Like,
would be way easier.
if we could just observe ourselves, even when you're like about to have a row with your partner, if you could just, like, when you feel the funky feelings coming, if you could just observe yourself for a minute first and go, what's going, we would avoid so much shit, but I certainly haven't gotten the handle on it.
Well,
at all times.
In that respect, I feel very lucky. And I think one thing that works for my partner and I is that we always hold the assumption that we don't want a conflict, that we both have each other's best interests at heart, that we love each other, without the expectations and all of these things, that we accept each other, even if we're having a shitty day or being fucking grumpy or whatever else. But the assumption is never like, oh, they're mad at me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you never have that assumption that like, oh, they're being a dick to me, right? You avoid a lot of conflict. And if I always assume like, what he's saying and what he's doing and feeling and everything else, like I've caught myself a few times thinking like, oh, like that was like not even a big, just tiny things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very aware of all the things. Oh, and they'll be like, wait a minute. Okay, I'm just going to get curious here. Be like, I'm curious why you said or did that, like nothing little thing, right? But I'm attaching meaning to it. So I'm like, okay, let's get curious. What actually were you thinking? And this has only happened twice. And then I've really stopped assuming anything terrible, because both times he was just like, oh, I just thought it would be really helpful for you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I was really making shit up in my head, right?
Oh my God, that's amazing though, that you've actually gotten in like that, that you can do that. I mean, I like everything that you're saying, I'm like, yes, that's the ideal, but I don't succeed. Like, it's not that I don't succeed. I mean, it's just that I've like, depending on what's happened, depending on my emotions, depending on the time of month, depending on, like so many things, or like how overwhelmed you are with the kids, or how whatever shit that's going on at work. Sometimes it's, I think it is just because it's kind of easier. The odd time it just happens. It's like, he's just a dick. He's just being a dick.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The emotion, my struggle, not with my partner, I have struggled with past partners. Absolutely. My current partner, it's been almost 4 years. It's been amazing. My kids though, they trigger me for sure. Right. Like maybe we're really similar, and maybe we push each other's buttons, and maybe I feel a different level of responsibility that I don't really feel for another grown human. I don't feel I need to take on emotional responsibility for him, right? But for my kids, I'm like, ooh, like I feel as a mother a bit of responsibility to help them grow up in a way that they become successful, happy adults, right? And so when that appears to not be happening, woo, the emotions rise. So I'm absolutely not over here being like, I'm so like perfect and I have it all mastered. It's just sometimes different relationships for different people trigger different things, right?
And I think that's the thing with the kids, is that we're seeing a version of ourselves, and we're much more, I think we all project all the time, all over everybody. But
yeah,
I think never so much as with your kids, and all of your insecurities about yourself come up in relation to your kids.
It's probably literally in their DNA as well. So it's like, oh, I'm really being faced with that stuff. Now, of course, if we go into parenting with the assumption that I fully believe, and like, it's one thing to believe things up here and another thing to embody and respond in such a way. But I know we're all doing the best we can with the resources we have, and kids are learning. And of course, they're going to push the boundaries and test and see and try different things and just see what the consequences of their actions or words are. And so knowing that and having that sort of basis of like, I'm not gonna well, I try but you don't want to assume that they're doing anything intentionally to piss you off. It's just that they're figuring themselves out. And as that's where you like pause before parenting conflict, just the same, right? And be like, oh, okay, right. Whew,
yeah.
Okay.
And then there's this little voice inside me that goes, sometimes they are just trying to piss me off.
They don't feel like it, doesn't it? Oh my goodness.
Why are you ignoring me? You know I hate to be ignored.
Yeah.
like that with my son is 4, and he's got that selective hearing thing, But like that, I mean, I teach all about law of attraction all the time, but it all goes out the window when I'm triggered by my son. So he'll be like, watching TV, and I'll be like, Louis, blah, blah, blah. And he like pretends as if he doesn't see, hear, or like even if I stood right in front of him, he'd be just like, and I'm like, I've started to rectify this a little bit, but it took a while. I was like, why are you ignoring me? I hate to be ignored, blah, blah, blah. Then I was like, oh my God, I'm talking about ignoring a lot. That the more I talk about ignoring, the more he seems to ignore. Lisa, from a law of attraction point of view, you're kind of manifesting this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yep. That's so true. Right. And also I really think that every time that something triggers us or evokes what we perceive as a negative emotion or a reaction, it's usually just something that's coming to light that we need to work on, right? Something that a place where we can grow. And it's actually not a bad thing at all. It's not negative or bad. It's just illuminating something that needs a closer look.
And it's just, like I've learned this from so many different points of view, but like especially from a confidence point of view, the same shit will come up over and over and over again, and the universe will keep sending you the same thing over and over again until you learn the shit you need to learn, until you actually learn to overcome it.
Yeah.
And I think like it's so important to look at the patterns that happen in your life. It's like, why does this thing keep happening to me? And instead of being like, it's not fair, just be like, why does this thing keep happening to me?
Right.
The lesson. What do I need to look at here? How am I attracting this in?
Right.
Why am I inviting this in? What am I not dealing with? What am I trying to ignore? And just face it. Like, I feel like we're coming full circle with the conversation, but it's just like acknowledging it and going, what is this?
Well, 100%, because when we take it from that perspective, like, what can I learn out of this? This is a conversation I have with my kids all the time. It's a very difficult lesson for everybody, I think, to learn. But when we're stuck in that place of complaining or blaming or even just sort of like remaining in sort of like victim mode, where we're like, it's not my fault. It's this. It's my circumstances. It's them. Whatever the case is. And with kids, they're always like, not me. It was him. It keeps us stuck in what I call like a solution avoidance mode, because you're not looking to solve the problem. You're looking to shift it away. And that's going to keep you avoiding finding a solution. It keeps you stuck in the problem. And so if you want to improve, to stop having the same problems reoccurring, you need to, and this is empowering as fuck when you actually grasp the idea that you are responsible, not for their behavior. Absolutely not. You need to have safe boundaries, because the way other people treat you, you know, is two parts. It's the way they're treating you and the way that you are responding and allowing and so forth.
Right.
Abuse is absolutely not okay. Boundaries need to be in place, of course. But it's empowering when you take back the control that you have over you and start looking for, well, what is the solution? And how can I do things differently? What do I need to learn? How do I need to grow or evolve and shift so that I can move forward and get the fuck out of this, right?
Yeah. And like that, I think the boundaries thing is so tied up in confidence. Like boundaries and confidence are almost like one of the same in so many ways.
Yeah.
Because it takes so much confidence to actually have boundaries.
Right.
And without boundaries, you don't have any confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And like it's a lesson that I'm learning over and over and over again in so many different ways with the boundaries thing. Like I'm 42 years old. I'm just starting to. I mean, look, my husband would probably say my boundaries have always been quite good. Maybe they have been with him. I don't know, but like I actually had a situation last week where I had a really uncomfortable. I had to have a really uncomfortable conversation with somebody, and I had to, in the end, say, this situation, this relationship is not going to work.
Yeah.
And I very swiftly was like, okay, and that's the end of it, and goodbye. And I got off the call with this person, and I was like, oh God, man, why am I a bad person? Like, I know she thinks I'm a bad person, but am I a bad person? And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not a bad person just for having boundaries. I'm not a bitch just because somebody else might be upset that I had a boundary. Yeah. Right. And I know that in the past, this particular situation that had happened, I know that even 2 years ago, I would have tried to resolve, even though the thing that happened was unacceptable. Yeah. When the person apologized, I probably would have tried to resolve it and move forward, and it still wouldn't have worked out, and I still would have ended up back in the same situation, and I still would have had to say, no, that's not okay, goodbye. But I would have made all the efforts to make it work and resolve it so as I could look like the good guy.
Right. Again, back to that good girl thing.
Yeah. And I was just, this time I was like, you know what? You can think I'm a bad guy if you want, but I'm okay with that. I'm not a bad guy. I'm okay. I'm okay with me. What happened here wasn't okay. And goodbye. That's the end of it. But it's challenging. And well, after that happened, I was like, I think I finally made a little bit of progress.
Yeah.
I think, and when you make that progress and when you kind of start to get better boundaries in that way, you get less and less people coming to you trying to break those boundaries, right? Because the universe knows that, okay, I've learned that lesson. I'm not available for that kind of person anymore. I'm not going to put myself in that situation. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, but it takes fucking confidence.
It does. And confidence is related to how valuable you think you are as well, your self-worth perception, right? So it's kind of an intricate balance of all these things, saying I'm worth having these boundaries. And it's tough because in the people-pleasing nature of most women, we don't set the boundaries because we don't want to upset someone else. We want people to like us. And so we're very loosey-goosey with the boundaries. But when we build up that self-worth and realize, you know what, actually my needs are really important here too. And the only thing that's happening when I'm people-pleasing, well, a couple of things. One, I'm trying to manipulate them into liking me, which shit. Now I'm the manipulator. Gross. Don't want to go there. But also, we're not living in our power in that way because we are prioritizing everyone else and we are not expressing what we need. And that's not a powerful place to be in. So creating those boundaries so that we can get what we want and need allows us to be filled with the love and abundance and peace and joy and all of these things. And when it can overflow, that's when we can really make a difference in the world, and we can give that love to people around us, and we can, create an environment that feels full of peace and joy and happiness and all of the things that we really want. The truth is, we were seeking out there. It's not out there. It's in here. It's within us. And we just need to decide that we're worth it.
That's
so.
Amen.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Amazing. So tell us, Lisa, what you are most excitedly working on. I know you are helping moms crush it and build their confidence. Tell us what you're working on and, what projects you have in the works right now.
So I have an ongoing project which is called the Lair Academy, which is the Lair being like for lioness women in business. And in the Lair Academy, it's a confidence container, but it's basically to help these lioness women who are fiercely ambitious actually realize their ambitions and actually realize their potential and actually make the fucking money that they were put on this earth to make. And not only that, but the impact, right? But I find that like the women coming to me in the Lair Academy, confidence is the base of everything, right? But often, because even if we are a very confident woman, confidence can affect us. And so, like, no matter what level our confidence is at, it's our confidence that's in our way, So whether it's that we're not really clear in our messaging, that's a confidence issue, because it's about not being clear with ourselves and not allowing ourselves to actually take up the space that we want to take up and become known for the thing that we want to become known for. So I help them to really define what they're here for, what their offers are, what their fucking marketing is all about, and to become magnets for their soulmate clients and become magnets for the people who really need them by just taking up space and
by just being
themselves out there, by just being themselves.
Yeah.
So that's the Lair Academy, and that's a 12-month container, and it's really deep. It's like, the women in there are like ambitious as fuck, and they're all making their way towards six figures. And I know that, like for them, what's attractive about the Lair Academy and about me is that, I made six figures in my business in the first year purely by focusing on the confidence piece, because everything else was figure outable. I already knew a lot of the other stuff, but some of it wasn't working just because I'm not going to say I wasn't confident a year ago, but I wasn't confident in a lot of the things that I thought were necessary to succeed, when actually they weren't. That it was perfectionism that was actually getting in my way. It wasn't, but perfectionism is a lack of confidence, So I know that that's what's bringing these women to me, because they can see that just a year ago I was where they are now, and if I could get there in a year, so can fucking they. So that's my main thing. That's my home base. I also run like a 4-week mini program called Get Paid to Be You every now and again. Typically I'll kind of run it out maybe once every 2 or 3 months. And then I have one-to-one clients. That's it. Simple. That's the whole business model right there.
I like that. Keeping it simple, right? Like that's what I am all about too. Just keeping it pretty simple and basic. No need to overcomplicate things. Get results without all of that hoopla, right? So awesome. Exactly. So where can people find you if they want to learn more about your programs?
So my Facebook, I'm Lisa Fox on Facebook, and that's where I hang out mainly. But I'm kind of dipping my toe a little bit more in Instagram. So I'm lisafox.ie on Instagram. But my main spot for like where I'm most engaged on the interwebs is my Facebook group, which is Millionaire Moms with Lisa Fox. Okay. So you can type that into the search bar and you'll find me in there.
We'll throw all those links into the show notes as well so people can find you real easily. Now, I just want to wrap us up with one last question. I would love for you to share one hot tip from one hot mom to another, or woman, whatever, to increase their confidence today.
Okay. So I think what I'm going to say is might seem a bit counterintuitive, right?
Sometimes we need that.
But sometimes we need that. Sometimes, we can work from the outside in, and it's easier. Like, start wherever you are and do the best that you can do, but fucking just go for it before you're ready.
Yeah.
Know that, you can have all the perfect ingredients, right? You can be really good at the marketing, really good at the sales, really good. Like if you're in business, you be good at the marketing, good at the sales, really visible, really have your offer is just on point. And so you can have this beautiful cake mixture, right? And all ready to go, and you pour it into the cake tin, and you're like, this is going to be everybody's going to want a piece of this cake. And you turn around and you realize you don't have an oven, or you haven't turned the oven on to preheat. Then you're fucked, right? You're the oven. Keep yourself on preheat. In other words, be available for it. You don't have to be really confident. You know what? The step before confidence is bravery. And it is equally as valuable, if not more valuable, because bravery is just like saying to the universe, okay, I am available for confidence. And it's not about like faking it till you make it, because I don't believe in faking anything, right? It's about just going, I'm going to start before I'm ready. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to just keep the oven on preheat. Now, that was a very roundabout way of giving you a hot tip, but I just feel like that's what so many of us need to hear, that like, it's not about, there's no one thing that's going to make you successful. All of the ingredients are equally as important, but you are the most important element that's actually going to make it, right? Yeah. So just be there for yourself and show up for yourself and be brave before you're confident.
Yeah. And that willingness is the first step, right? Willingness, allowing, and just stepping into, even if it's baby steps, one little step at a time. That's all we need to do.
Yeah, it's consistency. It's all about consistency. It's not about what we do occasionally. It's about what we do consistently that matters.
Yeah. Amazing. Fantastic. I have absolutely loved this conversation. It has been amazing. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Christy.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. If you'd like to connect with myself and or today's guest, you can find those details in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you've got an inspiring story to share, you can also apply to be a guest on the show at createyourhappy.ca. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.